start.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so let me move my chair. Okay, so my speech is about.
Oh yeah, do you all have our video on?
Yeah, I think so. Hello. Amaya and Haban, you guys here?
Yeah, sorry, give me 1 second.
You're good.
Okay, so this is a story of why I no longer want to be a nurse. So growing up, I had always been told that I would make a good nurse because of my ability to welcome people and comfort those in need. And this profession also appealed to me because like I just want a job in which that I can help people. And after constantly being told that I would make a good nurse and being interested in it myself, I decided to take an anatomy class at my school this past spring semester. And pretty early on in the class, I realized that I didn't really have the stomach to be a nurse, as the material was like really interesting, but also like kind of gross to me. However, the true telltale sign that I was not meant to be a nurse was my reaction to the dissections that we did, especially the last one. And also, I'm just going to say that I'm not going to get too into it because even if I wanted to, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But the morning of the final dissection, I was particularly nervous, which wasn't uncommon for me. And for days that we had dissections planned. However, it was like worse on this day because I had dissection all semester. And also I just want to say I'm a huge animal person, despite what the events of the story may lead you to believe. But back to the story, this was the cat dissection where it was the full body with the fur and everything. And it was the last dissection to close out the class. So we had to use all of our like anatomy and physiology knowledge, as well as our dissection methods that we had learned throughout the year. And also this was my second period. So I had heard from first period, like the class, about the horror stories and the heinous scent and the gruesomeness of the dissection, which was not helping to ease my nerves. And to say the class reeked upon walking in was an understatement. And our teacher was very quick to offer surgical masks and essential oils and gum to mask the smell. And then this allowed us time to begin to settle down before we began the dissection. And after the class was prepared, she began to disperse the cats among the tables. At this time, I opted to cover my eyes and to look at my own discretion. And I briefly uncovered my eyes to wish my table mates good luck. But before I could get the words out, my teacher gently tossed the cat right in front of me. And it was a really difficult sight to see. And I was just overwhelmed with like fear, disgust, and anxiety. I began like sobbing, crying. And as you can probably tell, I was not able to carry through with the dissection. But fortunately, my teacher was extremely understanding and allowed me to complete an alternate assignment for credit. But it would be generous to say that I lasted 30 seconds into the 3-day dissection. But overall, the course pretty much killed any desire I had to be a nurse. And to this day, still traumatizes me when I see a dead animal or roadkill, or even an animal that possibly looks dead. And I usually need to take a minute to compose myself. But that's all. Thank you for listening.
Do we have to give feedback or anything, or do we just present?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure feedback.
I think that you told the story pretty well. Like, the order of events was pretty well. Like, it wasn't all over the place, and you were able to like
Thank you.
describe and capture like the emotion. So I think that was good in storytelling.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you captured how you felt very vividly. So that was good.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it looked like you were giving really good eye contact too. Although it's the camera is really hard sometimes, I'm sure to do that. You did a good job in making it seem like you were looking at the camera, not just on your notes or whatever you had written.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really good because it seemed like you like really knew what your story was. You didn't have any weird pauses or anything like that. So well rehearsed.
Thank you.
Yeah, I felt other than the regular shake into your voice. Yeah, I'm not you for being there. What through, but you use a lot of ums and likes, which are like filler words. So practice, get away from them. I'm pretty sure you're gonna get better. You did a really speech storytelling. You were did good. As Ramon said, you're being really incredible. And did everything that I think was pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say you had really good eye contact, even though it's like over Zoom, and your body language was really good.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Someone said
Yeah, I'll just go. Oh shoot, sorry. I need to like readjust the camera. So this is gonna be a story about one of the first few times I went snowboarding. So when I was about 8 to 9 years old, my family and I took a trip to Big Bear with my mom's friend and her 2 teenage kids. During our stay, we were obviously planning to go snowboarding, and this was going to be my second time snowboarding after a few years and my dad's first time snowboarding. So we were relatively inexperienced. The plan was to go with the 2 teenage kids, since they were more experienced at the time and they were wanting to stay with us until we got the basics down. On the day we were snowboarding, everything was going to plan for the first hour or so until one of them suggested we try another easy slope. My dad and I were getting a bit bored of the bunny slope, so we decided to go ahead and give it a go. We got onto the ski lift and it started to ascend the mountain higher and higher. After a little bit, I felt like it was just trailing on forever, and my dad felt that same way. So he asked the kids, like, what's going on? Why is the ski lift not ending? And that's when they replied, oh, we're actually just going to do one of the easier expert trails. My dad laughed and was up for the challenge, but I, being 9 years old, was super terrified, but I had no choice but to follow since I was stuck on that ski lift. When we got to the top, my dad noticed that I was still nervous, so he gave me a pep talk, just told me it's going to be just like the bunny slope, just a bit longer and steeper. That's when the 2 teenage kids ditched us. They said that they didn't want to wait and they would just see us at the bottom of this slope. My dad and I started going down the slope little by little, and eventually we started to get the hang of things. We tried to stick together, so I would go down a little bit, stop, wait for him. He would catch up. He would go ahead of me, and then I would go catch up to him. As we got towards the bottom of the slope, it started to plateau, so I decided to go over to the side to wait for my dad, but in the process of doing so, I somehow shifted my weight wrong and I flew face flat into the snow. As I was trying to get up and catch my bearings, that's when I heard my dad shout out, but it was too late. I felt a huge force hit me from behind, and pain started to radiate throughout my body. A person that wasn't paying attention and their board hit my back and my neck. My dad ran over to make sure that I was okay, and all I could remember hearing was, "I'm so sorry, I wasn't looking in front of me," over and over. But to everybody's shock, I got up just fine. I was just a little bit bruised and scraped. After that had happened, we decided to just walk the rest of the trail back down, and we headed back to the cabin. But we didn't let that stop us, and the next day we went up that same trail and had a blast. And that is the story of the time I went snowboarding.
Seems like you definitely had that well rehearsed. Kind of know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you
Thank
really
you.
did a good job on practicing your lines. You were pretty confident, and it just seemed like you had all your whole story memorized by heart. And I mean, yeah, it's a story. It's kind of a traumatic story, so yeah, you did a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that was a
a-
really interesting. Sorry. I was just gonna say that was a really interesting story, and the way you delivered it was really good, and you used like strong words, and your tone was good too.
Thank you.
yeah, that was a good story. And it had like a good rhythm to it. I think the only thing I would add, and I think it's common for probably for all of us, will probably have that for our first speech, is like, I remember the example that we had to watch with the girl talking about her work experience, is that we don't be afraid to be like spontaneous with the storytelling. And you can, I think it also said to emphasize certain things, like when you're making like a joke or saying something that's supposed to be funny, you don't be afraid to be more, put emphasis on it, because you did have funny moments on that too, that I think might have been missed by some people listening.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was like really good storytelling, because when you said like some guy hit you on the back of the neck, like I was like actually like shocked. So like if you're going for like a climax there, like that was a really good one.
Thank you guys. Who wanted to go next?
I can go next. I just might not be able to stand up because I'm stuck at work, so I'm just doing this in the corner. But I'm going to be sharing my story about why I want to become a firefighter and why I'm choosing this career path as a pretty young guy still. So I've always wanted to become a firefighter ever since I was a kid. Me and my dad would go to the local fire station because that's where my uncle used to work. He didn't work there as a firefighter, but he worked there as a maintenance worker. So he would change their filters, their water pumps. He would manage the rest of his workers to come in there and check if everything's doing all right. But I always used to think that like they were huge guys, they were pretty big, they were pretty strong. They talked so confidently, they talked pridefully, going around the community. I lived in West Side Long Beach at this time, so it was a small town, not that many people, but everyone knew that station 05. Those firefighters were known for saving buildings, coming into people's houses, rescuing the elderly. So yeah, those guys were super respected, and and they did everything that they were supposed to do. So I always looked up to them as a role model. Like looking up to your brother or looking up to your dad as role models, I always looked up to the firefighters the most, because I just felt like they did the most for their community. They're putting their lives on the line to save other people. And they came to my house one time because my house was on fire too, and it was due to my brother's just regular adolescent mistakes. But he put a beanie on a old lamp that wasn't really protected by anything, so the lamp overheated and the beanie caught on fire in his room. And then it was my grandpa that saw it. He ran into my dad's room, told my dad, but thankfully my brother wasn't in his room at that time. He was on the couch sleeping. And I remember inhaling the smoke. I hated the smell. It's like it's like smelling one of the cooking that your mom makes that you don't really like. It's just that one nasty smell, but it filled my lungs with just this horrible silicone stench. It's like plastic because of all the synthetics in his room at that time. He had a bunch of posters, a bunch of artwork, his skateboards too. So it was just that really synthetic smell that didn't smell right. But me and my dad and the firefighters, we all ran out the house. They came in, took the kids out one by one, and then my dad was last. He was covered in some black smoke. It was just horrifying, and I can only imagine what other people would, or how other people would react in that sort of situation. But thankfully, we had an emergency escape plan. Our route was planned. We suppressed the fire a little bit with our ABC fire extinguisher, so that helped quite a bit to help us get out in time. But I've always wanted to just be that person to run in there, save them, save their smiles, keep them healthy, make sure that there's nothing wrong, and then go in there and stop whatever's happening to their house that they lived in for a while. It's just that sentimental value that you're protecting, basically. So yeah, that's all. I just wanted to say thank you to all those firefighters out there. They're actually doing a lot more than we think.
That was really, really good. It was a really powerful speech and story, and I really liked the comparisons that you made with your brothers and the firefighters. Looking up to them. It was just really, really good.
And I think the way that you were describing like the experience too, like the smoke and like how like went into your lungs, and you kind of like make comparisons to like your mom's awful cooking. I think that kind of helps the audience visualize what you're talking about, which I think was good.
Yeah, it was a good topic to share with something that sounded like that's passionate for you. And it's like special interest for you. So that was you were able to connect and then therefore share it better when you have that connection to a topic like that. So it was a good job.
Yeah, you definitely had a lot of passion in that speech, and it showed.
Yeah, it was really descriptive, like Jared said. Like that makes for like really good storytelling, especially when you can like put it in the reader's minds, like what exactly was happening, like the smell and like how it felt during that moment, especially like when there was fire and smoke. So that was really good.
You guys.
I can go next too.
I mean, if you want to, that's fine.
All right, cool. I need to fix my computer. All right, this is a story about how I learned why not to mix Red Bull with alcohol. It all started on February 24th, 2022. At UC Santa Barbara, there was a well-known club, SB Snow Club, that would frequently throw parties. These parties were called Dagers, or Day Ragers, because they were always thrown in the afternoon. My friend, Brian, and I learned of one of these parties, and we decided that we would go, and we went to go pick up our wristbands for entry to the event. On February 26th, Brian and I started getting ready for the party. It was a denim-themed Dager, so Brian and I put on our jeans, and when we got there at 2 p.m., it was already packed. There was a DJ, people were dancing, and people were most definitely drinking. I had brought a can of Red Bull that I found in my fridge to mix with the alcohol, but I would later learn why that was a bad idea. By 4 p.m., Brian and I were both around 15 shots deep, and we thought we could keep going. And at 4:30, we thought it was a good idea to climb up on the roof of the house. When we got up there, we took photos for a bit, but at 4:45, the party started dying down, so we decided we would climb off the roof. It took all my focus to get off the roof, but I did make it down safely. But that was the last thing I remembered before waking up in my friend's dorm later that night at 9 p.m. My friends had told me that Brian and I decided to go down to the beach, which was 4 blocks away and a staircase down. Miraculously, we made it down without falling, but by the time we made it down to the beach, I sprawled out on the sand, and my friend recorded a video of me laughing while rolling around. My friend then called 3 of our other friends to pick us up because he honestly wasn't sure if he could take care of me and himself in the state that we were in. By the time we were walking back with them, it was already dark, as seen from a video that I saw that was shot on my phone. They walked us back a total of 1.5 miles back to Brian's dorm called Santa Cruz, and it took us 30 minutes to get there. When we got there, my friend took me and washed all the sand out of my hair and then sat me down in a chair where I started saying incomprehensible sentences. Later, I regained my consciousness and they told me about everything that had happened that day. Thank you.
That was really good. I liked the suspense that you created with like the dramatic pauses, and it was also educational to know not to mix Red Bull with alcohol.
I think you picked a good story to tell too, that kept the audience engaged. Fun to hear about.
Yeah, definitely an interesting story. Seems like you had a little bit of a spotty memory on it. So yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely a good funny story that was probably pretty relatable for people's first time doing that. I'm sure a lot of people had can identify with the experience like that. So it was a good topic, definitely.
Thank you.
I was gonna say it was a really funny story, and I like the part where you didn't know what happened. You just woke up in your friend's dorm like hours later.
All right, I can go next. I'm gonna need a second though. Okay. I'm sure we can all think of a few things we've taken for granted. And for me, it was food. Now, and after entering college, I was able to understand how comfortable and nice it was to have, someone to kind of constantly remind you to go eat, then ordering takeout, then making home cooked meals. It was a very nice, comfortable luxury that I didn't have to think about. And I think that this kind of mindset is something that originates from us just being children. As kids, we don't really know better than what our parents have really taught us. And so we just think that whatever they provide for us is the norm. Like if a family was giving their kids like 10 cheeseburgers every day, if you told them that wasn't normal, they'd be in disbelief. Now, but I think one of the most important things that we take for granted is actually hearing. And back when I was in fifth grade, we got a call from my grandpa. It's nothing important, but it was just a typical call. And my mom was busy, so she took the phone and gave it to me. And I remember taking the phone, she put on my left ear, and I took it and I put on my right ear. And after the call was over, my mom asked me, why did I do that? And I told her, I was like, why not? What do you mean? I don't understand. And she said, why didn't you just listen to the call on your left ear? And I said, I can't. My ear doesn't work. And I'm sure you can imagine her reaction to that. It wasn't very she got very nervous. She got very worried. And but to me, it was completely normal. I didn't know that we were actually supposed to hear out of both of our ears. It was kind of foreign to me. But we went to the hospital that night, and I remember they played a test for me. They played the sounds into both my ears one at a time. And I remember crying very vividly, not because I kind of realized that I couldn't hear, but mainly because I was like, I realized I was kind of failing a test, and as an Asian kid, I didn't like failing tests. So that was just something I didn't like. But we discovered that basically the nerve endings between my ear and my brain, called the auditory nerve, was very underdeveloped, and that was actually something from birth that they couldn't really control. And this basically meant that sounds would not register into my ear, and like anything for me to hear on my left ear would have to be very loud, very, very loud. And even if it was really loud, I wouldn't really be able to distinguish certain sounds from each other because everything just sounded really muffled. And after living with this for 20 years, I can't say that it's the worst thing in the world. I know there's definitely disabilities out there which are way worse than just me being half deaf. But having to strategically position myself at the table every time I go out with friends to eat is a little bit of an inconvenience. And same thing with when I'm walking with friends. I always have to be on the leftmost side, otherwise I won't be able to hear what everyone's talking about. But it's not all bad. One of the good things is that if there's ever loud noises when I'm trying to sleep, I can always just stuff my right ear, the working ear, into my pillow, and I'm good. I won't be able to hear much. So that's kind of nice. But as a competitive gamer myself, I like to think of myself as competitive, but not being able to distinguish directional sounds is kind of a major inconvenience because it's just not really something that I can tell. If someone doesn't call me from my left, I honestly wouldn't really be able to tell if it was behind or in front of me. But I've come to live with it. And as you sit here listening to my speech with two good ears, hopefully, this may sound a little disheartening, but I think it's a good reminder to me and to others that we shouldn't take things for granted. Thank you.
That's really good. I like it was like a powerful message, but you also added like humor in with like the kind of the story about the phone, and then stuffing one ear if there's a loud noise or something. But like your story was very interesting, and your word choices, and it was very powerful. Good job.
Yeah, that was very good storytelling. Like it kept really people engaged in the way that you were sharing. And I think your use of emphasizing certain things like going up and down in tone, and then using those hand gestures, it really drew people in, want to listen more. So that was a very good technique style wise of storytelling.
I think it was also good that you were able to kind of incorporate some background information on like what was going on too. That way, like the audience isn't as like confused if they didn't know everything. So like it was good, like you kind of told more about the hearing loss that you had in your ear and like what contributes to that.
I really appreciated the humor, especially the joke about, failing a test as an Asian kid. That was pretty funny. So thumbs up.
Thank you.
You spoke really well and enunciated, and your hand gestures like added more to the story.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but I only have one earbud in. So yeah.
I guess I'll go next. I can't really stand up because I'm currently in a room with a bunch of kids. So, but I'll be telling a story about Nigerian folklore about a tortoise and a magic drum. So, once upon a time, there was a king who owned a magic drum. And whenever he banged that drum, food would appear, like beautiful feasts, anything he wanted. And the king invited everybody to the palace to share his feast and his wealth so that the kingdom would never fight and there'd be always be peace there. And the magic drum depended on the owner who took care of it. The only rule of the drum was that the person who owned it could never step on a branch to break the magic. So, as time passed, everybody loved the king. From like farmers to milkmaids, bakers, babies, and even animals like antelopes, elephants. Everybody in the kingdom just loved the king. And one day, a tortoise decided to climb a tree for work and to collect nuts for his family. He was very sad and mad that he himself never had wealth or food to feed his family. And he began to feel sorry for himself and envied the king for his wealth. And one day when he was working, one of his nuts fell on the ground, and a woman was down there and heard it, turned around, picked it up, and ate it. Then the tortoise climbed down, yelled at the woman about how he never has anything to feed his family and how that she just ate his food. The woman was very sorry for eating the wife's food. So the tortoise decided to talk to the king and report the thief. Little did the tortoise know that that was the king's wife. So the king said that he was sorry for what happened and that the tortoise could take whatever he wanted from his palace. So the tortoise walked around and looked at all the stuff, and he passed by a drum. So he said, "I want the drum." So the king willingly gave the tortoise the drum without even telling him about the rule. So the tortoise ran home, told his family that they were rich and that they could have whatever they wanted. So the tortoise beat the drum and had a huge family dinner. The tortoise stopped working and grew fat and lazy. And one day, the tortoise was walking around and stepped on a branch. The tortoise went home and beat on the drum. The magic was gone. Instead of a feast, dozens of people poured into the house and attacked the tortoise. They said that they were going to make war on him and his family for his whole life. So the tortoise gathered his family and they ran to the riverbank, and they lived there for the rest of their lives, eating fallen fruits, slugs, and nuts. That's the story.
That was really good, and I really liked the way you told the story, like the inflections in your voice and stuff. I like how you picked like a folk tale instead of like, even though personal speeches are interesting, but it was interesting to hear like a folk tale story.
Yeah, I like the fact that you didn't really stick with like the traditional like story about like ourselves, like yourself. But I think I personally think a little more like enunciation, a little more like just kind of vocal power between the words could help with a little bit, because it was a little monotone. But I think other than that, it was pretty good.
I really liked how you told the story. Like it honestly felt like I was getting read like an actual like folk tale, like from like my mom like reading from like a children's book or something. So like honestly, just the way you told the story was honestly it got the point across really well.
Yeah, I think it was a creative choice to pick a story to tell rather than the typical. But yeah, same note about inflection when telling a story. Just to, it captures just the listener a little more when you're talking. It just pulls people in when you're hearing that the ups and downs of your words. But good job.
Yeah, I agree with everybody else. The topic, like the story you chose was good. It was nice to have like a change in story. So it was nice to kind of hear the folklore that you told. But yeah, good.
All right, so we're up to me, right? I'm the last one. Cool.
Yep.
So my story I'm going to share with you is my first marathon that I ran. So a year ago, I decided to deep dive into a plan of health and wellness for mental health and physical health. Part of the physical health journey was to run my first marathon. I think the mental health also would help with that because I definitely needed therapy thinking I could run a marathon. And I soon found out actually it was a lot more mental than physical when you're doing something like this. So going to the night before the marathon, I was worried that I would either oversleep or undersleep. And because of the anticipation, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to fall asleep the night before. So the morning came and I did actually underslept, but I was going to make it because I had a couple of cans of Red Bull waiting for me in my fridge. I also had my perfect running outfit laid out waiting for me. They were in bright colors, and that would help my friends and family identify me as I was running past them at a snail's pace. But I soon found out a lot of people actually had the same idea. So we were just like a flash of running colors as we were running. So as I walked to the start of the starting line, there was a slow march of runners making their way to the front of the line. It kind of felt like we were marching into battle. So it was pretty neat. And I came prepared with my weapon of music via my iPhone and for motivation, and Band-Aids on my nipples as my armor. As I was told, it would prevent chafing. I got near the front of the line, and soon enough, the buzzer rang for us to begin the race, and I was off. I had adrenaline rushing through me, so the fact, and also Red Bull, so any sleepiness I had before was gone, and I didn't feel tired whatsoever. I was well into the race, and it felt like I could actually do this, and it was possible to run the unthinkable 26.2 miles that I had never run before. And it felt easy at first, and it didn't hit me until mile 20 when I actually started feeling like giving up. I could feel the pain in my legs, and I just wanted to stop running. And I actually did stop for a moment, and it was those moments that actually hurt the most. I soon learned that it was actually harder to walk, because then you could actually feel the pain rather than if you keep running, the pain you'll just get used to it. So I just kept running, even at a slow pace. It was better than walking. And it actually really did help to have like people on the sidelines, like cheering you on, and people giving you water cups, really to keep you hydrated. And since it was the rock and roll marathon, there was music everywhere as motivation. So it was doable. There was a lot of motivation going on. And so I soon, that thought of giving up was no longer an option. It was something that I was prepared for, and I came to win, or at least finish, get to the finish line. As I was running too, it was interesting to see all the different people that were there. There were people that were pushing their babies in a running stroller, and there were like older people like that you would not think were prepared for a marathon were actually doing better than you. So it really motivated me to think like, this is something that many people think that they can't do, but they actually can. So it really enforced that mental strength, idea of mental strength for me. So the unthinkable or undoable became very doable. So I got to the 21 mile, 22 mile mark, and it actually started feeling like that I should actually finish this. And I just started running my fastest because I felt like I could actually get to the finish line while I was running. And so I was running towards the finish line at a medium pace, and then I felt like I couldn't run anymore. And so I stopped and I walked for a while, and it was okay. I didn't have anything to prove other than finishing, and I was fine with that. And it was like a moment of just joy, just like feeling you're a part of something. And then I realized I needed to keep with the pace. So there was people like getting close to me and getting me motivation. We were running in a group together towards our finish line. And so we were getting really close to the finish line, and it actually became more of like a group mentality. There was like a lot of people together. So it really gave you a lot of motivation to finish. And that's what I think helped me get to the end, was having all the support around you. And yeah, and I got to the end, and it was like a celebration, and it was very rewarding to think that something I prepared for a year, starting a year ago, was actually here, and you actually made it to the end, and it was a good feeling. That's it.
It was really good and super motivating, and I really liked the descriptiveness and the metaphor that she did about like going into battle and having your music as your weapon and your band-aids as armor, and the humor that I really
Thank you.
I think it was really good as well. I think the way you told the story was pretty good. Like it felt like a natural conversation, not like a speech or like a story in a way, but like you were still able to like make it feel like a very natural like conversation with someone, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I think you definitely like were able to like tell the story in a very natural, like progressive way, where it felt like a normal conversation, like kind of like what Jared said, which was very nice. Yeah.
I really liked your story. It was like really inspiring, like a story of like triumph and like achieving a goal. So like honestly, it's really inspiring. Like, you know, sitting a year out to do a marathon and like actually achieving it, like kind of felt like I was there with you, like the whole like, you know, group mentality, like you like finally making it to the end. Like that's really awesome. So really awesome storytelling.
Thank you.
You enunciated really well, and I love the story, and I applaud you for running a marathon. I can barely even like run down the street.
I think anybody can do it. It's just, like I said, it's all in mental. If you tell yourself you can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, my dad used to run marathons and he used to bike too, but I would try to catch up with him. I couldn't do it. Like my body just physically can't go. I was listening the whole time and I just felt like that. You know, your mental capacity to like keep going through that. I don't think I could be able to do the same thing you do. But yeah,
it's-
overall your story was pretty good though. And you know, you did a good job, you know, showing your passion and then explaining the whole story without, you know, missing out on any details. So I thought that was pretty good as well.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. Are you training for another marathon or no?
Yeah, I think I will actually continue doing it. It was actually a really good experience, and it's something I would definitely do again. Not like skydiving, I would never do that again. Marathon, yes. I think that was everybody, huh?
Yeah, I think we're all good now then.